Welcome to Butt and Butt Tutorials. I am Sheshadri, Faculty for Social Science. This session is for 10th grade ICSE. And we are doing geography in social science. The lesson which we are doing today is the soils in India. Before I start the actual chapter, dear students, I would like to share with you this textbook which I am following. I hope all of you have the same textbook. The publisher of the textbook is Goyal Brothers Prakashan. And the author is Veena Bhargava. So for geography, this is the textbook I am following. I think this is the only one which is the best one available. So I'll repeat again. Goyal Brothers Prakashan is the publisher and Veena Bhargava is the author. So let us now continue with the chapter. Okay. Now, the main components of how this chapter is divided is, first one is the importance and formation of soil, composition of soil, second one. Third one is the soil profile. Fourth one is characteristics of different soils. Soil erosion. Next one is soil conservation. Sixth one. The seventh one is soil groups of India. Actually, classification of soil is a sub-item under the soil groups of India, but that is where they have classified the four main groups of soil classification. Okay, so let's see the first one. Importance of soil. Dear students, there is no doubt that India being a vastly agricultural country and almost 60% of the people still living in villages, and that to rain-fed agriculture being an important part of our agricultural activity, this is one item which needs the utmost care when it comes to understanding of what is soil, understanding of what is it that is causing depletion or what is causing erosion, and the different methods that we use for soil conservation. Everything becomes ecologically, environmentally, and economically. In both ways, it's important. Now, soil supports plants, animals, as well as human life. Life depends on the food we eat, and soil is the source of that food for man and animals. Thus, agricultural production depends on the fertility of soil. Now, the fertility of soil, so far, as we know, the latest trend they talk of nowadays is, they say organic produce. Organic produces when, obviously because of use of regular use of the soil, it loses its fertility. So fertilizers are added to improve the fertility of the soil and to improve yields. But again, because these are again chemicals that are introduced into the soil, organic farming here has become very important, where only natural elements, manure and biodegradable waste is used as manure, and it is the produce that is coming out of this organic way of farming is becoming more and more popular nowadays. It may be even more slightly more expensive than the normal produce that we get out of chemical fertilizers, but fertility of soil again is an important thing there. Now, formation of soil. Soil essentially is the loose material which forms the thin surface layer of the earth. Its formation is related to the parent rock material, relief, climate and vegetation. Relief means the height at which it is there with respect to sea level. So these are the four main factors which go into the formation of the soil. Animals, insects and man also play an important role in the formation of soil. As we will see later in the composition, there are two main parts where you have inorganic part and the organic part. So it is in the organic part of the soil that animals, insects and man play an important role in the formation of soil. Soil is formed under specific natural conditions. These natural conditions again, whether defines the basic bedrock from where the soil is obtained. If it is a igneous rock, it is mainly from a very old explosion of a volcano or the flow of lava. Then again, if it is in situ, like we will see, black cotton soils are all in situ soils which are formed there. So that is why it says it is formed under specific natural conditions. And it is a mixture of minerals or inorganic matter which results from the denudation and disintegration of rocks. This is the prime source material of how the mass of the soil is formed. It's basically denudation. Denudation is by means of erosion, and disintegration is when the rocks themselves get split by a natural process. And this whole process of denudation and disintegration itself takes a long time. It is not, it doesn't say thousands of years is what it generally takes. So it is not a short-term thing, formation of soil. So though it is a renewable resource, it takes a long time to regenerate. Though the soil is a renewable natural resource, though it takes a long time to regenerate, because disintegration of rocks, particularly, these happen over hundreds of years. It is not a short-term thing at all. So that tells us how important it is to conserve the soil that we have, and in today's context, to use less of chemical fertilizers and use more of organic nutrients for production of the food and vegetables that we grow out of it. The process of soil formation is called pedogenesis. The technical word that is given for that is pedogenesis. The next, we come to composition of soil. Soil is a mixture of inorganic material, minerals and organic materials like humus. Though the bulk of the soil is actually inorganic and the mineral content, and it is only the organic part of it which gives it that fertility factor. The factor of fertility is given by that. Now, when we look at the inorganic components, it has got three main substances there. The soil is composed of three main substances. The first one is silica. It is present in the soil in the form of small crystalline grains, the main constituent of sand. Sand is 99%, it is silica. And it is derived from the disintegration of rocks. Basic source of where sand is formed or how silica is present in the soil is by disintegration of rocks. The second inorganic component is clay. It's a mixture of silicates and many other minerals like iron, calcium, sodium, potassium, and aluminium. Clay soil retains moisture. When we see the classification of soil, we'll see that actually black soil or black cotton soil has got a very high percentage of clay, which is why the moisture retention capacity is more in clay. And these minerals, iron, calcium, sodium, potassium, and aluminium, these also enrich the food that is produced. Now, reduction of any of these is what is known by the soil is tested. How do we know that a particular type of soil has become less fertile? Is just like we do tests we do a blood test in case of human beings to find out if there is something wrong. A similar thing is you test soil also for these different constituents, and extreme deficiency of these components will be known when over a period of years the soil is used continuously for crop production, and we will see in the uses in the erosion part where crop rotation is not followed, where the same type of crop is used, there the soil will become deficient in one of these components, and it becomes deficient. That is when the need for fertilizers come. So overall management of soil is definitely a complex process. The government also has to ensure that different regions soil is tested and the knowledge of what is not correct in that soil is passed on to the farmer at the field level. So this is something where agricultural universities will need to step in and the state agricultural departments will need to step in. Okay. So the third component, the inorganic component, is chalk, which is calcium carbonate. This provides the most essential element for plant growth, which is calcium. As much as calcium is needed for our strength, particularly orthopedic, our bone strength, as is known, the same thing is required, calcium is required for plant growth as well. The second part is the organic component. Now these determine the fertility of the soil. They are derived from decay of vegetable matter. Basically anything that is biodegradable and that lies into the soil, which it goes on to make the soil more fertile. And the ultimate form of organic matter is humus. It's called as humus. Here again, I said biodegradable. Now, as we have seen increasingly all across the world, even here in India, use of plastics is being banned. The reason is this, because plastic does not biodegrade. It stays on, it doesn't degrade at all. For hundreds of years, it doesn't degrade. So what happens is the quality of soil also goes down. So here, for the betterment of the fertility of soil, improvement in the organic components is, and that too as to be as natural as possible, is very important. Okay, it is not a mineral, it is organic matter because it is formed by the decomposition of plant remains, animal waste and dead animals. Animals, maybe large ones, and even right down to a butterfly, right down to a small insect, right down to ants. Everything ultimately they contribute to the fertility and the organic nature of the soil. It helps the soil to retain moisture. That is one of the main components. It imparts a dark color to the soil. It also helps the plant to draw nutrients from the soil essential for its growth. Because the inorganic part is all mostly, we saw its components of rock. You have silica, and you have clay, and you have this thing, chalk. So it is actually the organic part which lets the plant root grow deeper and draw nutrients from the soil. Other than this, the soil also contains moisture and air, which varies from soil to soil, which varies from place to place. Okay, this was about the composition of soil. Here, this map, I would like you to refer to the different maps that are given in the textbook also. As we go to that specific chapter, specific part of the chapter, I will ask you to refer to the maps that are there in the textbook also. This is a combined map where all the major soil types have been shown: alluvial, black, red. Actually, yellow is not part of the red soil. It's another part. So, and then lateritic soil, arid soil. Arid is basically the desert regions, where the absolute desert, the desert to the west of Rajasthan. That's the point. That's the part you are seeing there. And in Gujarat, it is the Ran of Kutch. They are totally arid, basically where most of the salt production takes place in our country. That's where it is in the Ran of in the Gujarat Ran of Kutch part. And then you have the forests and mountainous. These are the major soil types, but in classification, only 4 of them are discussed here in the present lesson. The 4 major types being alluvial, black soil, red soil, and lateritic soil. So one is this combined map. The other one, please note down individual areas where individual map is also given in the textbook. Please refer to each of these individual maps. You have maps for alluvial soil, black soil, red soil, and laterite soil. There are 4 different maps in the textbook, so please refer to them also. Okay. Now, soil profile. When we look at the, if you take a cross section of the, if you take a vertical section of the soil, it consists mainly of 2 layers. One is the topsoil and the subsoil. Topsoil, they have not specifically given the depth here at which the topsoil is occurring, but a topsoil depth of, I would say, not more than 1 meter is where the entire topsoil would be there. Below 1 meter is where the subsoil will occur. Now, this topsoil forms a layer where the plant growth takes place. Hence, a fertile topsoil yields good crops. It also contains bacteria, worms, and insects, which are so important for the fertility of the soil. As stated earlier, formation of soil is a very slow and long process, but it can be washed away in a very short period if precautions are not taken. It has happened. In fact, when we come to the erosion part, we will see that many parts of India where rapid erosion of a hill, or it's called as rill erosion, huge areas of mainly the Western Ghats, they have been washed away. There's absolutely no soil. And when you see those mountains, you'll see absolutely no trees there because there is no soil to hold any vegetation. So that is why it says it can be washed away in a very short period if precautions are not taken. Therefore, conservation of the topsoil is very important, as its loss would affect the economy of the country as well as the life of people. Both this, one is properly understanding the formation of soil, a proper understanding of erosion, soil erosion, and of the conservation efforts, of the soil conservation efforts that need to be done. All are important, particularly in an agriculture-based country like India. Now, the next one is the subsoil. It is formed by weathering of the parent rock. It also contains a part of the organic matter and moisture, but it is not very productive. It is the lower part, the part I said, like below 1 meter. Whatever is there becomes the subsoil. For good crops, it would have to be converted to soil, which is a very slow process. What the author means is, for good crops, the subsoil has to have more and more features as in the topsoil. So particularly the organic part of it, if it increases, obviously it becomes a good part of the soil. Below subsoil is the solid, unweathered bedrock. In many cases, when we excavate, you go beyond 3 meters, say 1 to 3 meters. Again, you have broken up or weathered rock, what we call. Beyond that, you go down to the actual rock itself on which the entire soil is located. So below subsoil is the solid, unweathered bedrock. Now, we have looked at the formation of soil, the composition of soil, which are the main inorganic and organic components. From a vertical section point of view, we have seen the soil profile, which distinguishes the soil between topsoil and subsoil. Then we come to the characteristics of different soils. Three main distinguishing factors here on which these characteristics are defined and the way the soil is defined. The first one is sandy soil, contains 60% of sand and 10% of clay. The remaining being the organic matter part. I would say more of lateritic soils, or the ones that are found on the coastal regions. They are more sandy soils, or more, when we come to the further classification, we'll see it is the lateritic soils which are more sandy, which contains more of sand and less of clay. They allow the water to pass through. They don't retain water. They are good for cultivation only if some fertilizer is added. Reason is because it allows water to pass through. All the nutrients that are there generally are, they cannot stabilize inside a sandy soil. It gets more and more washed away. So you want this to cultivate more on this, you will have to add fertilizers to make up for deficiencies in the nutrient profile. It is good mainly for fruits and vegetables. Clay soil, now it has more than 60% of clay. It retains moisture and is sticky in nature. Black soil or black cotton soil, the most common type of clay soil, that is where it retains moisture. Black cotton soil, it absorbs water and it swells when it absorbs moisture. And whereas when it becomes dry, the entire moisture escapes and it becomes all cracked up. It will show all those fissures in the top. Particularly areas of, there are some areas in Karnataka where Raichur, Gulbarga, or modern name is Kalburgi, the northern Karnataka districts, or what is known as Hyderabad Karnataka district, has got a lot of this kind of soil. It improves, its fertility improves if sand and chalk are added to it. What they do over a period of time in each of these farms or in villages that they do, every say 2 or 3 years, particularly where they get soil from where some construction is happening. So particularly areas where new construction is happening, the topsoil gets removed. So what farmers in areas do is, that soil which is removed from a construction site, particularly the topsoil, the initial clearance soil, that is taken and that is added to the farm soil. So that is the way. Now in a clay soil, they will add that kind of, it's called overburden also. Another word for topsoil is called overburden. So when that overburden is removed from any potential construction activity, which is rich in nutrients, is added to existing agricultural lands. So that is how it is improved. Loam. This is actually a mixture of the first two types, the mixture of sand and clay. And it is more fine. Even the sand that is there is, the particle size will be very less in loam. It can be very fertile with the right mixture of sand and clay. A minor distinction here again. If higher percentage of sand is present, it is called sandy loam. And if there is a higher percentage of clay, it is called clayey loam. This map which we have put here, actually the discussion is not on this map. Please use the same map. This map is actually figure 5.1 in the textbook. It is only for alluvial soils. When we come to the discussion, not in this class, we will be doing this in the actually in the next session. We will refer to this particular map. This is the alluvial map soil, alluvial soil map. Now the next point that we come to is soil erosion. I can say, though what we have done in this, what we are doing in this chapter is very brief regarding soil erosion. It is one of the most important things in making our country agriculturally strong. We need to actually go into much bigger detail in soil erosion, but the scope of discussion on this chapter is not very exhaustive. Okay, but what is erosion? It is the removal of the topsoil by different agencies of weathering. The topsoil that gets washed away. So that is the erosion. Running water, without doubt, it is the most important and the most contributory factor in erosion. Wind, overgrazing is by cattle, which in the countryside they are taken for grazing. When we come to that, we'll see how we can adopt better policies for control of this aspect. Men, plant, and animals, definitely. There are some concessions we have to make with respect to environment. When there is construction, definitely there is going to be soil erosion. All the national highways that are happening, huge trees have had to be cut all along. Even, of course, you would not remember, or you have not seen Bangalore in those days. Small example, if you take from Hebbal flyover to Devanahalli Airport Road, it was the road was covered on both the sides by a canopy of trees. Today, after it was converted into an NH or a wide road, all the trees had to go. So, a certain part of development also leads to this. That is where men, plants, and animals come in. Faulty methods of agriculture. In that again, crop rotation has to be maintained so that the nutrient level of that particular soil is maintained. Again, what happens is, for any farmer, he only those crops which give him the maximum result for that particular type of soil, he will choose to do that. If something is not that productive, though it is environmentally good, they will by nature not want to do it, because everybody wants to generate as much amount of money as possible from their only source of income. In this case, for people who have only agriculture, they would want to maximize their income, but that leads to some faulty methods of agriculture. Now, the first factor that we see here is running water. Like I said, the prime factor of soil erosion is running water. Indirectly, soil erosion helps in soil forming because from wherever the soil is removed, it is deposited elsewhere. It happens, but what happens is the fertility of that particular area where it is removed, that becomes an area which is unfertile. So, hence it disturbs the agricultural pattern and should be prevented. Obviously, water has to deposit it elsewhere, but the particular area from where it goes, that becomes unfertile. Now, there are several ways in which soil erosion takes place due to running water. Three types here. One is splash erosion, where the soil is pulverized by the impact of heavy drops and hailstones, as in case of convectional rainfall. Big chunks of ice that form in hailstones, or when the amount of raindrop is abnormally large. Normally, splash erosion, I would say, is a smaller contributor when compared to sheet erosion, or even when compared to gully erosion. So, the amount of erosion that happens because of splash erosion is not major. It will be a minor percentage compared to the other two types here. Now, the other way is sheet erosion, which I feel is the most prevalent. Sheet erosion, whereby due to heavy rains, a surface film of water carries away the even surface layer of the top soil as it moves. So, whatever soil had all the nutrients that gets washed away. You see, every year, even as we are talking now, this latest rain has caused immense flooding in Assam, and there has been a heavy loss of life. Every year it happens in Assam, mainly because the Brahmaputra, the mighty Brahmaputra, where the amount of rainfall is high. People, because of easy access to water, they live in the lower reaches of the valley, near to the river. And when the river rises due to excessive rain, it causes flooding. So that flooding is what is this sheet erosion, where the entire top layer of the topsoil goes away. The next type is gully erosion or rill erosion, whereby on steep slopes, in absence of any vegetation, the flow of stormwater flows with downhill, developing into a channel flow, cutting steep-sided valley as it runs off. Gullies cut up the agricultural land into bad land where no cultivation is possible. Example, Chambal ravines is given here. Another example which I mentioned is anybody who has driven out of Bombay towards Pune, you can see the Western Ghats there. Many areas of the Western Ghats, absolutely there is no vegetation there. So this is what has happened. The entire topsoil has been washed away in many areas there. You look at the same Western Ghats down in Kerala, or say in areas near Udupi or Kundapura in Karnataka, the same Western Ghats, you will see a lot of vegetation. Similar, it is the same range, but where erosion has happened, there is absolutely no vegetation on those. So that is another one, gully erosion or rill erosion. Sorry. Okay, we'll look at the next point. This is soil erosion by wind. This occurs on extensive flat lands which are subject to a windy dry season for part of the year. More of it, a lot of it, of this kind of thing happens actually in Rajasthan, where the desert soil, it's absolutely dry, there is no moisture, and because it is totally dry, slight wind will take away the topsoil. So this is erosion by wind. The upper soil surface becomes loose and susceptible to wind erosion due to lack of moisture. The annual rainfall is less, and there is no replenishment by means of any river, by any other source. So once the soil loses moisture, any wind will drive away the topsoil. Overgrazing. Due to overgrazing, the wind erosion occurs as the soil devoid of vegetation is directly exposed to the wind. Now, this overgrazing and the next part, actually both are very interconnected, because overgrazing is by animals which are all domestic animals which are controlled by men again. That is why what the government does is, particularly rural areas, government keeps with itself some land which are actually left only for grazing. They are called Gomana lands. Gomana land means they where you can, the purpose of that land is only for grazing. Even peripheral areas of forests are led to this. Again, there also you should not do overgrazing, which means you can't keep taking your cattle to the same area throughout the year. They'll have to keep changing their areas. So that is where overgrazing comes. And erosion happens. In the next factor is men, plant and animals. Just now discussed a little while ago, man's activity is like construction work. People will say, why are you making the highway wide by cutting down trees? We can't help it, because it is the very same road or the highway that is made that will let the farmer bring his produce to the nearest marketplace for better selling, for better returns. So a good all-weather road network is very important, or a good rail network is important. That is where areas which are far away from cities or from urban centers, where goods can be sold. So where they're produced, that's the rural area. So in order to reach this, he needs a good network of highways as well as railways. So this is inevitable. Only thing is, we need to strike a balance between development and erosion and conservation. Now, construction work, plowing, cutting down trees causes soil erosion. Overgrazing by animals and uprooting of plants also results in dismantling the soil. Overgrazing we have discussed. Faulty methods of agriculture. Shifting agriculture, as in Northeast India, this maybe not very prevalent now, but earlier was there. They will cultivate a certain piece of land, then after 2-3 years they'll further move inwards. What will happen is, even forest areas they will start claiming for agriculture. So that is one method, say shifting methods of agriculture. So lack of crop rotation. Someone is growing wheat or someone is growing paddy. They say, for instance, groundnuts are, you must have studied in your botany and other subjects, it fixes nitrogen in the soil. So nitrogen fixing capacity is there for the groundnut crop. So this kind of crop rotation makes the soil fertile rather than use the soil for only one particular kind of crop. This lack of crop rotation happens particularly in areas where there is irrigation facility available. If the farmer were to depend only on rain, he would maybe go in for crop rotation. But suppose he has got a borewell, or he has got irrigation canal in his village which supplies him water throughout the year, the same crop he will go for one more round. One he will go in Kharif, the other one he will go in Rabi. Kharif is where the main monsoon is, that's in May, June. That is now what we are presently, June, July. This is the Kharif season. Rabi is when you had the northeast rains. That is somewhere in October, November. So two main seasons in the agricultural pattern. Wrong plowing again. If he takes into account, like he does terraced farming, that also will help retain water. Which brings us to the next aspect. If there is erosion happening, what is it that we are doing to contain it or to preserve it, which is known as soil conservation. Soil conservation is an effort made by man to prevent soil erosion, to retain the fertility of soil. Soil is our most precious resource. We need not have any doubt about this. It is important to our national economy, as productive soil ensures prosperity in agriculture, industrial development, and general economic development. Hence, several measures have been adopted by the government to prevent soil erosion. What happens is, in the case of open cast mining, which is there in many areas, where iron ore is mined, where coal is mined, these mines, after their productive life and after they have stopped mining in that particular area, nowadays it has started that the entire mine area is being reforested, so that whatever soil that is there, that was disturbed due to the mining activity, that also is regenerated over a long period of time. Now, the first step that we do here is, there are about 6 steps here, of which afforestation. The best way to prevent soil erosion is to increase area under forests indiscriminate felling of trees must stop. You see, even in the construction industry, when you see lots of things have happened because of less use of wood. The idea is to use more of, for instance, earlier buildings would have only windows made of wood. It could be any type, teak or any other types of wood. Nowadays you have windows, a lot of huge buildings, big buildings have only windows of aluminium. So the use of wood has been reduced there. So how do you stop felling of trees? Wherever the end uses, you stop reducing the end use of that wood. So that is just one aspect which I told. To check overgrazing. Overgrazing of forests and grassland by animal grazing, especially by goats and sheep, should be checked. Separate grazing ground should be provided. It is in fact there. There are lands separately which are earmarked and which cannot be owned by anybody. These lands are owned by the government. It is there in every rural area. These lands are available. So the idea is a general watch, say by the forest department, so that overgrazing of forest, even the peripheral area of forests also are, they allow, the forest department allows grazing by cattle and goats and sheep. Idea is to prevent overgrazing so that they keep rotating areas. They may have to go for a longer distance to prevent overgrazing. That concern has to be addressed by whoever owns the goat and sheep. Constructing dams and barrages. Much of the soil erosion by floods can be checked by constructing dams or barrages over such rivers. This would check the speed of water and thereby save soil from erosion. Not only does it save soil, it helps in providing water year-long. In many cases where hydroelectricity is produced, it is another source of electricity, water itself. So, constructing dams and barrages. Again, constructing of dam, when you see from the environmental latest argument is, you should not do a dam much larger than what is required, because again that will involve submergence of areas in the watershed of the dam, the area behind the dam. So this also, it has to be a judicious, it has to be a very well thought out policy, this soil conservation, and it is being taken seriously by any government that is there in power. Improved techniques of agriculture. Contour method of plowing checks soil erosion. Contour method is, you do it in steps. Contour method and terraced farming, particularly in slightly sloping areas. Both these methods are very helpful, because it will not let the water flow in one direction. It will keep ponding it in steps. So terraced farming also checks erosion, as it controls the direct flow of water. So perpendicular to the slope, they will do the farm. They'll do the plowing perpendicular to the slope. So you create a patch where the direct flow of water is reduced. Crop rotation, we saw earlier also. Crop rotation improves fertility of the soil, different types of soil. This is where he will need to, and the government also has to disseminate whatever is the good latest scientific development that is happening in agriculture in this, and the farmer also will have to make a choice between growing only income deriving crops versus crop which will give him some income but also improve the fertility. Planting of cover crops would check soil erosion, as plant roots hold the soil together. You will see generally areas where, wherever possible, they will plant long stem teak or casuarina also. Teak, even Nilgiris, they plant on the edges of the field, so that would also prevent too much flow of water, and it would prevent soil erosion. Shifting or zooming or slash and burn type of agriculture should be banned. Shifting again was the one which we talked of in the northeast. So this kind of agriculture itself should totally be stopped. They should learn to use the same land and use different techniques to keep improving the fertility of the soil. Belts of trees and shrubs should be planted to check the velocity of wind and thus prevent wind erosion. Invariably, most of the people, they do this. It also gives them a good income, because these large trees, once they are there over a 10-year period or a 15-year period, will give him a one-shot good return when he cuts them, and he can even sell them. And again, replant. The replanting can happen in the same area. Okay, we are almost at the end of this particular session. Actually, this chapter will be done in 2 sessions. We are almost at the end of the first session. The soil groups of India. In soil groups, you have 2 types of groups. One is, you have a geological classification, and then you have a classification based on whatever is the type of transportation that is there, and from the base material. So we will look at we'll look at the geological classification this time. The other classification we can see in the next session. Okay, soil groups. India has a vast country of vast dimensions with varied conditions of geology, relief, climate and vegetation. Therefore, India has a large variety of soil groups distinctly different from each other by way of their origin, color, texture, fertility and chemical composition. But geologically, it is just divided into 2 main groups. Indian soil can be broadly divided into 2 main groups. Soils of peninsular India. Peninsular India, dear students, is what? The entire southern part from the southern tip of, say from Kanyakumari upwards, when you come beyond MP, including MP, that part is the entire peninsular India, what we call as peninsular India, because the other part of peninsular is the northern plains, which is the Indo-Gangetic plain, where the Ganges flows, which is parts of UP, Bihar, most of UP, Bihar, Himachal Pradesh. These are the northern plain, which is non-peninsular. So the area below that, below MP, and including Maharashtra, leaving out the coastal regions, leaving out the eastern coast, leaving out the western coast, that balanced part is what is known as peninsular India. The soils of peninsular India are those which have been formed by decomposition of rocks in situ, that is directly from underlying parent rocks. They are transported and re-deposited to a limited extent and are known as sedentary soils, because they are there, produced in situ. They are present where they were produced itself. Even if some transportation happens, it only is by a very short period of rainfall or some small rainfall. There is no major river carried kind of transportation there. So this is one geological type which is known as the sedentary soil. The second one is the soils of extra-peninsular India, that is northern plains. All the rivers which originate from the Himalayas and come downwards carry all the soil that is there. So soils of extra-peninsular India are formed by transported or residual alluvium brought down by the rivers from the Himalayas or by wind. These soils are often referred to as transported soils. Now, these are the 2 main types geologically. Classification-wise, usage-wise, which is commonly known, is what we will take up in the next session. We are at the end of this session. Any doubts, you can call us on these numbers, or you can send us a message on the Button Tutorials mobile app chat section. Thank you.